Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. If it's your first time, welcome. This is Blue Lantern Milsurps. My name is Scott, and here we talk all about military surplus rifles and firearms and restoration and conservation and collecting. So this week we are going to be beginning a really big project, and it has to do with this antique firearm right here. So what this is a Austro-Hungarian Steyr Mannlicher model 1886/90. And I'll tell you how we got to that point. So in order to explain this firearm, we kind of have to do a quick history on smokeless powder and black powder cartridges. So up until the mid-1880s, every army in the world that had rifles used a black powder cartridge. If you remember the Civil War movies, you know that they packed black powder and everything down the muzzle, and that's how they fired. And then right after the Civil War, these cartridges got popular, and it's where we take a black powder with the bullet, and we actually put it inside a brass casing here, and with a primer. And this is a 45 caliber for a Springfield trapdoor, an 1872 Springfield trapdoor. But for the purposes of this story, this is what we will refer to. So this is what every army in the world used, and some of them had single shots, some of them had magazines, tubular magazines or box magazines, and how they fed them. And the Austro-Hungarians came up with this, the 1886, and they started making them in 1886, and it was a black powder cartridge rifle with a straight pull bolt action. Now I can't show you this right now because I have the bolt taken apart, and I'll explain why later. So, and it actually had a magazine where the rounds would fit into. They could fit 5 rounds into the magazine on a clip, on an end block clip, and then feed them into it. So they had a repeating rifle with a black powder cartridge. Then what happened was something that the French did. A French chemist by the name of Paul Villet, something like that, not sure how to pronounce his last name, but it begins with a V, came up with smokeless powder. And he came up with the first smokeless powder round, which would look a lot like this one. This is an 8mm. So these were anywhere from 10.5 to 11.5, and some of them as much as 12mm diameter rounds. And a black powder cartridge would shoot probably around 1,500 to 2,000 yards, and it would have a muzzle velocity, which means the bullet coming out of the muzzle would measure somewhere around 12 to 1,400 feet per second. And they had a really big trajectory there. When smokeless powder came out, this was invented in 1884, and the French came out in 1886 with the French Lebel rifle that used a smokeless powder round. Smokeless powder will shoot at about anywhere from 21 to 2,500 feet per second. It's got a smaller round, so it goes a lot faster. The smokeless powder, a lot higher pressure, so it pushes it a lot faster. And the biggest thing is there's no big puff of smoke. It's smokeless. Well, that set off a massive small arms race in Europe, America, Asia, across the world. And everybody was trying to come up with a smokeless cartridge to use and the rifle to use it in. And that's the reason that starting in roughly about 1888 to 1900, you saw all these countries switch. German commission rifle, model 1888. Italian Carcano, model 1891. Russian Musin Nagant, model 1891. The Belgian Mauser, model 1889. The Ottoman Empire Mauser, model 1890. The Argentine Mauser, model 1891, all using various types of smokeless powder rounds. And I could go on with all kinds of different countries. Spain in 1893, and Austro-Hungary in 1895. So until then, till Austria-Hungary got to that, what they decided to do was to transform this rifle that they had started making in 1886 into a smaller cartridge, a smaller round cartridge, because small and fast ballistically is much better on the battlefield than big and slow, every day of the week and twice on Sunday. So the first thing the Austro-Hungarians did is they had made a little less than 100,000 of these rifles, and they were made for the big black powder cartridge. And they decided to stop making them. They made less than 100,000 of them. In 1888, they decided to make a small caliber, or an intermediate cartridge, but a smaller caliber round, but still using compressed black powder. So they get a little faster round out of it, but not smokeless powder. So what they did was they took these 1886 models and they rebarreled them, and they put an 8mm barrel on them. A couple other small changes, and this became the model 1886/88. Then in 1888, they rebarreled most of the 1886s. About 5,000 of them had already been shipped out to Chile under a contract, and those are actually the only ones, because the Austro-Hungarians changed virtually every one they had. 1886, 11mm, they rebarreled them, put a different barrel on them altogether with a different chamber for a smaller round. And then in 1890, they did it again. So they didn't have to rebarrel it, but they changed the cartridge to a semi-smokeless round. And the only change they had to make was to the sights. So that's how we get from 1886 to 1888 to 1890. So since this did get the new sights, and it had been rebarreled to 8mm, it's considered an 1886/90. So that's where we are with it. Now, this one I got from Royal Tiger Imports, and we're not going to go into Royal Tiger Imports today. For those of you who know, they are a company down in Florida that import a lot of used firearms, military surplus from around the world, mainly Africa and Ethiopia. And they're in really rough condition, but they tell you that. So when I got this one, I was actually pretty happy with it, because I'll go through what I found, and I've not taken it apart yet. But for the most part, everything was here that's important to be here. The stock, a little rough. There is some cracks here, but they've already been fixed. And all the barrel bands are here. Everything is here. The only thing I found was I took the bolt apart here, and not this one, because I actually just got this one. The firing pin inside the bolt was frozen in there. It had been rusted in there. So I had to work really hard to get it out. And then I actually found a new firing pin, I think the last one available anywhere on the internet around the world, and had it shipped to me. And it was in rough condition. So I actually had to clean and sand this, and then I had to clean and sand the inside of the bolt. It wasn't easy. I actually took a cleaning rod and wrapped sandpaper around it, but I eventually got it all clean. So the firing pin will actually, the new one I got, will actually work. It actually goes through. So that's kind of what I found so far. So what we're going to do, this is going to be a major project. So all the sling swivels are here, the stacking rod is here, there's the appropriate correct butt plate. The stock has some cracks, but they all look to have been fixed already. We don't have any weird markings. It's all very dirty. But I think the only things that I found missing was the extractor and that broken firing pin. And the other thing is the bolt head that screws in here. There's like the bottom of it's missing. And I've been looking around to try to find another one of those. So far I've not been successful. It will work, just missing the bottom of it. But most of it's there. So I was able to get a new extractor. There's actually a company that makes these as reproductions. And then I found the one and only firing pin for an 1886/90 that I think was ever available. It was in really rough condition, but I was able to clean it, get all the burrs off of it, and sand it. I went through 80 grit, 100 grit, 150, 180, 220, 320, 400, and 600 on the firing pin as well as inside the bolt to finally get it to where everything works. So this is going to start about a 2-week project. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to stop the video and then I'm going to take this thing apart. I've been itching to take it apart for a little while. And I'm going to look at the inside and see if there's anything missing on the inside and how dirty and rusty it is. So I've been working on the bolt for about a week. I've got that where I like it. I'll show you how the bolt works and everything in part 2 of the video. Right now, we're just going to focus on the rifle. We're going to find out if there are any cracks on the inside, how bad the wood is on the inside, just how dirty it is. The good thing is that all the springs seem to work. The trigger works. The seal works. Everything is there. The follower on the magazine works. The sights are there. They're appropriate. They're correct. And I have all the barrel bands. So let's take it apart and just see how dirty it is. I know it's going to be very dirty on the inside, but I'll come back to you after I get it disassembled and I'll show you the parts, and that will be the end of part 1 of this video. And then in a week from now, you'll see part 2 after I spent a whole week cleaning and scrubbing and working on the stock and the metal parts. And I'll tell you how we're going to do that after I get it apart. So right now we're going to stop the video and I'll be back to you after I get this apart. Okay, everybody, we are back, and it is as dirty as I thought it was. So we got a lot of good news here. We'll start with the stock. I don't see any cracks on it. It is very dirty, but there are no interior cracks, and the ones that are here in the wrist have already been repaired. So I was unable to get that one off the buttstock. I will have to use some coil and some heat and work on that at another time. It looks like somebody tried and kind of deformed it a little, so we're going to have to work on that. There are obviously a lot of gouges here on the stock. Nothing we can do about that. But the good news is it is solid and it can be cleaned. And we'll see what we can do after we clean it, degrease it, and clean it with the crud cutter and possibly the citrus strip that we'll have to use to get as much of the gunk off and get down to the wood as we can. So that is the stock, the metal parts, as bad as I thought. The good news is I don't see anything missing. There was one screw that I could not get off, and that is this one here on the magazine. And we're going to have to, I will eventually get it off, but we're going to have to put some coil and some heat to that. So the inside of the magazine here, just full of all kinds of gunk. There's some rust and a whole lot of dirt and gunk on here. So you can tell under the wood here. A lot of surface rust though, but no pitting. A lot of surface rust, a lot of dirt everywhere. That's just going to have to be cleaned. This is from the inside of the magazine. Here is the follower and the magazine spring. All really, really dirty, but intact and working. So this is the bolt stop here, and that all very, very dirty, but functional. This is the rear sight. So really, really dirty, some surface rust on the bottom, but serviceable. If we look at the nose cap here, once again, intact, but really, really dirty. So as well as the other one, but the sling swivel works. And this is the rear band. Really dirty and rusty. And the rear sling swivel, which came off very easily, but pretty rusty and dirty. none of that isn't anything we can't work on. It's not going to look like it came out brand new off the assembly line, but I think we can really clean this up, get the dirt out, and get it back to looking acceptable. So the first thing we're going to do is just clean and scrub everything with degreaser. Then it's going to go into the ultrasonic to be ultimately cleaned. And then everything here is going to be boiled and carded, including the receiver and everything. There is the trigger here. It works, but I do want to get that out, and I believe it has to do with the spring right here, and there is a pin that holds it in right there. But before I try to punch that pin out and remove the spring so that I can get this out, we're going to get it all cleaned, and then we'll put some penetrating oil, some Croil on there before we do that. So a lot of rust, surface rust, but no pitting, and a lot of gunk and dirt, all of which is cleanable. So I think it's going to actually come out okay. It's going to tax my skills, definitely, but I do have the bolt working, except for that broken bolt head, which I'm still looking and trying to find. I sent out a bunch of emails today to different parts places. Hey, you got one laying around? Let me know. I'll buy it from you. But all the screws all worked. Nothing was deformed of the screws I have. Nothing was so deformed that I couldn't find a screwdriver bit that worked well in it. And they all turned very easily, except for that one on the buttstock and this one right here. But even if I don't get that one out, that's the magazine catch, and the spring works. So that'll probably be about 40 minutes in the ultrasonic cleaner alone, and probably another 40 minutes. And then boiling and carding that along with everything else. So that is going to be it for this week's video. We have an intro to the model 1886/90 of the Steyr Mannlicher. And throughout this week, I'm going to just be cleaning and scrubbing, boiling, carding, working on that stock, getting all of that stuff done as best I can. And then a week from now, we'll put it back together in part 2 of the video and see how it looks. Hopefully it will look presentable and be functionable. There's no ammo to shoot in it, so I'm really not worried about that. I would like to get it back to full functionality and looking as best as we can make it look. And so that is it for this Sunday Gun Day and the intro and disassembly of the Steyr Mannlicher model 1886/90. So that's it for now. I will see you in a week when I've got all of this done and put back together, hopefully, and we'll see it put back together. I'll show it to you taken apart, then we'll stop the video. I'll put it all back together, and then hopefully it'll be working. So we'll see you in a week. Have a great week, everybody. Bye-bye.